Welcome back to the Public Safety Veterans Subcommittee. We're back in adjournment, and we have our next candidate, Thomas. Thomas. Good morning, Thomas. How you doing?
Good morning.
So if you take a couple minutes just to tell us who you are and why you want to be a judge.
Certainly. Chairman, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council Member, my name is Thomas Periscindola. I'm born and raised in Phoenix, Arizona, specifically North Phoenix. I went to ASU. I'm a Sun Devil. I'm married. My wife and I have a 5-year-old little boy who just started kindergarten. Professionally, I've been practicing law now for 22 years. I started out as a prosecutor for the cities of Flagstaff and Scottsdale. I went into private practice 19 years ago. I went into private practice, I had an opportunity to office share with my father, who was also at the time a practicing attorney in Sunny Slope, where my father also practiced law in Sunny Slope for 45 years, serving his community. That's now where I practice, and I have been for the last 19 years. When I went into private practice, I had the privilege to do so day one with the City of Phoenix Public Defender contract, a full contract, meaning I service 2 courtrooms at all times. I sit here today before you with a full City of Phoenix Public Defender contract. I've had that contract for 19 years. Again, a full 2 courtrooms, where I've had the opportunity to help thousands and thousands of individuals. In addition to defending for the City of Phoenix, I occasionally take on a private case in other jurisdictions in Maricopa County. At the same time, I'm also a prosecutor. For the last 19 years, I've been the Cave Creek Town Prosecutor. For the last 12 years, I've been the El Mirage City Prosecutor. And finally, for the last 4 years, I've been the Cave Creek Town Prosecutor. So it's that balance that prepares me for today in this position. Thank you.
Any questions, Mayor?
My question is, tell us about your personal life. What do you do? What's your hobbies? What's fun for you?
Well, I mentioned I have a 5-year-old little boy, and that's where my wife and I, our activities surround, really around him. We enjoy spending time together. We enjoy going up north, Flagstaff. We were there this weekend. As a matter of fact, we went to Snowball, and we had an opportunity to go up the chairlift and go hiking. So I like to spend time, obviously, with my family, like most people, or else they wouldn't have a family. But the other thing I like to do is spend time with my friends. I think that's important to have a balance between family and friends. I like to go to I'm a big sports guy, so I like to go to the ball games. I can recall when I was younger, I would go to the Suns games with my father. And that's something that I've been able to do now with my son. He already knows all the Diamondbacks and the players' names and what position they play. So it's activities like that that are surrounded by family and friends. That's how I spend my free time, in addition to some of the community service that I do as well.
Could you expand on that?
Community service? Of course. Well, growing up, it was important to my parents to raise us with being community-minded. And what we tried to do as a family is we wanted to do community service together. So I can recall it's something we would do on a regular basis. We'd do food drives for the needy, clothing drives for the needy. We would also serve food at shelters during the holidays. I can remember what a humbling and what a wonderful opportunity that was, because it let us see how fortunate we are. That's something, a tradition that my wife and I are continuing. We try to do community service with our son. Right now he's 5, so he doesn't understand a lot of things, but what we try to do is we try to find age-appropriate activities that service the community, and we use that in an age-appropriate fashion to explain to him what it's about and who we're trying to help and how fortunate we are. So that hopefully at the end of the day, we can raise a like-minded individual that's going to be a positive member of society.
Thank you.
Councilmember Mendoza.
Tell me about an innovative idea you've had that you've been able to implement in your career. Anytime in your career.
Sure. Well, as a prosecutor, one of the things we're constantly trying to do is best practices. And as far as innovative, we're always constantly trying to be more efficient. And that's the epitome of who I am. I try to be as efficient as possible. It's one of the things that I do to be efficient is, and something that the City of Phoenix is actually doing, but I think we can do more, is when I prosecute, every single case I'm prepared at the first arraignment. Normally, most jurisdictions, prosecutors aren't even there. For probably the last 10 years, I've been there, I'm prepared, I can have an intelligent conversation with a defendant. I've done my homework. I've reviewed the reports. I've reviewed criminal histories. I've had victim contact, so I know what to do. And it's an approach that's beneficial to everybody because it speeds up the timeline. We're more efficient, and it leads towards more efficient justice. Thank you.
Councilmember Jim Waring.
How do you know Jesse Garcia?
I grew up with Jesse. Jesse and I have known each other, I believe, since junior high. I can recall Jesse, one of the things Jesse did is he had a golf tournament to benefit, I believe, homelessness. And that was someone, when Jesse was very young, Jesse actually ran for city council probably 25 years ago. I think I still have a t-shirt that says I backed Jesse Garcia, and then it had Jesse's name on the back. So Jesse and I go way back.
He didn't run against any of these guys, did he? Because that might be awkward. Just kidding. Okay, thank
So
you.
he's one of my closest friends.
So what work or training have you participated in to allow you to develop an understanding of the diversity of the Phoenix community?
Well, as I mentioned, I'm born and raised here. So I've seen a lot of changes. Also, my office for the last 19 years is in Sunny Slope. So I've seen the impact as far as diversity has. Also, keep in mind, I have a full contract here, so I deal with a diverse amount of issues and people. Also taking into consideration where I prosecute. I prosecute in El Mirage, I prosecute in Carefree and Cave Creek. So I'm dealing with diversity every single day. And at the end of the day, I treat everyone with dignity and respect and fairness. And I always attempt to do the right thing.
Thank you. Any other questions? If you'd like to sum it all up, or you got a couple minutes to recap?
Certainly. First of all, thank you very much for this opportunity. It's one that I'm extremely grateful for, and I'm grateful for your time. I've been prosecuting and defending for almost 2 decades now. Phoenix it's the court that I know. It's the court that does the most good. It's the court with the specialty courts, with the programs like the CAP program that really make a difference. I want to continue to make a difference in the city of Phoenix. Continue my work as a public defender, again, almost 2 decades, now as a judge. This is my home. This is where I want to be. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Well, thank you so much. It's Anna. We're at the halfway point.
Is it morning? Still, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Anna. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and why do you want to be a judge?
First, I want to thank Mayor, council members for allowing me the time to speak and sharing this time with me. I am very honored to be here this morning, and I'll tell you a little bit about my life and my qualifications, and I will definitely answer your question as to why I want to be a judge. I was born in Panama City, Panama, and when I was a young girl, my mother met my stepfather, who is born in Japan and serving in the U.S. military. After they married, my dad was stationed to Fort Huachuca, Arizona, and thereafter my mother and I immigrated to the United States. I will let you know that my childhood was a good childhood, but at the same time it was a hard childhood. My first language is Spanish, and in first grade I was held back because I did not speak English. Being a daughter of two immigrant parents, growing up, I felt different, and at times I felt that I was out of place. Eventually I dropped out of high school and I moved to Phoenix. Here, I received my GED, and at that moment I knew that I wanted something better for my life. And definitely that was the beginning. I had dreams of going to college. I had dreams of going to law school. And eventually I had dreams of getting my master's in law. All I have been able to accomplish with the encouragement of my husband, my family, and my friends. I can let you know right now, sitting here, I am definitely a true example of the American dream. You don't have to be perfect. You just want to have that desire and that ability to work hard. And through education, so many doors have been opened for me. The reason why I want to be a judge is because early on in my profession, I've learned that helping people is the right thing to do. And as a judge, this is going to be an easy transition, definitely at a larger scale, but I'm prepared and I'm welcome for this new responsibility. My qualifications to be a judge: I worked in a small law firm. I represented clients that had misdemeanor charges all the way up to major felonies, including manslaughter and homicide. Most of my clients speak Spanish. And I learned to feel comfortable with the large caseload. Eventually, I was awarded a public defender contract with the City of Phoenix and with the City of Scottsdale in 2008 and 2009, respectively. I've held those contracts. They are a blessing. For the City of Phoenix, I litigate all types of misdemeanors, and I've also now worked at the initial appearance court here downtown. In Scottsdale, my clients that I represent have serious mental illness, and this is a very unique part of my practice. And it's a very delicate aspect of my practice. It requires a lot of patience, a lot of compassion, but I feel that all people should be treated fairly, with respect and with dignity, no matter their background. Later, I have been able to travel all through Latin America on behalf of the American Bar Association. I teach trial advocacy to attorneys, judges, prosecutors, law students, law professors. I visited Peru several times, Ecuador, Panama, all throughout Mexico. And after each seminar, I leave with new friendships and a greater appreciation for our judicial system. But my biggest joy has been touring the City of Phoenix children here at the Maricopa Superior Court. And Their first engagement is with security. And with just that brief interaction, the children, they appreciate the importance of public safety. Thereafter, they're able to view a criminal trial for just a little bit. We end up at the haunted courthouse here on Washington. And if you have not visited, I would suggest do so and take your children. But at the end of each term, my passion is to have one student go home and dream that they too can be a judge, can be an attorney, can be a police officer, or whatever they desire to do through hard work and education. In conclusion, I know I will make a difference for the City of Phoenix Municipal Court because I can bring my story to enrich the bench in hopes to encourage other minorities to dream big and not be afraid to be less than perfect. I will be an example to those that appear before me, and I will let them know that their circumstances can always change. This was told to me a long time ago. Our past does not dictate who we are, but what we do today and tomorrow will determine who we can become. And I'm living proof of this. As a judge for the City of Phoenix, I will continue, as I've done as an attorney, to make hard and difficult decisions. And I will encourage and inspire the public and my colleagues to pursue something greater than themselves. And I will always give back to this community more than what was given to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Mayor?
Thank you. Tell us about your personal life, community work, fun you have,
Oh yeah.
hobbies, etc.
If you don't find me in the courtroom, you'll find me in the gym. I'm an avid exercise enthusiast. I love CrossFit. I love bodybuilding. I just had my first competition, July 19th. I was going to say my age, but I'm not going to.
It is recorded.
And it was an amazing experience just to be on stage and knowing that you have come out of your comfort zone. And I always believe that a healthy body correlates to a healthy mind. In my profession, I find when I'm in trial or I'm in a hearing and they are the most pressing, I do my best when I feel my best. So if I'm not in the gym, then eventually I'm at an ASU game because I'm a Sun Devils.
Councilmember Mendoza?
Tell me about an innovative idea you've had that you've been able to implement in your career. Anytime in your career.
Well, as a contract attorney, I am still a sole practitioner. And so what I've been able to do is just be able to be more detailed as far as my cases. When I have a client that comes in, I developed a system to where they provide me their information. I'm able to input any victims, any police officers, and therefore I can double check to see if there's any conflict of interest. Those are the things that I strive for. You have to be detailed, you have to be careful, and as a judge, I will continue to do so.
Councilmember.
So you've been, if I read your resume right, you've been a sole practitioner since 2007.
Yes.
Which wasn't long after you got out of law school, so that,
Yes.
that certainly took some confidence. Why would you want to give that up?
Because I think, as I told you earlier, I like to dream big. And I am here because this is the next step. This is an acceleration of me being an attorney. this is something that I can use in order to encourage other minorities to say this is possible. This is obtainable, and I can be that example, and I definitely can be that beacon. So as an attorney, I love being an attorney. Now as a judge, I'm going to equally love being a judge.
So what work or training have you participated in to allow you to develop the understanding of the diversity of our Phoenix community?
I'm a living product of that. I am an immigrant. I am bilingual. Any opportunity that I have, I'm able to use my Spanish skills to help others, and representing individuals that of all kinds, and it's just not Hispanic clients. I've represented clients from Africa, from Asia, but being different doesn't mean that you should be treated differently. Justice should be administered fairly and equally.
Any other questions? Any closing remarks?
I just want to express again how happy I am to have been given this opportunity. As elected as a judge for the city of Phoenix, I will be a beacon. I will put others before myself, and I will be very, very proud that I have been given this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next is James. Oh, no, Tina. Sorry, Tina.
I think you were wrong about that.
Good morning, Tina. How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Doing great. So Tina, if you take a couple minutes just to tell us who you are and why you want to be a judge.
Certainly. Chairman Nowakowski and members of the subcommittee. My name is Tina Solomon, and that's half the battle, remembering my name. But I want to tell you thank you first of all for allowing me the opportunity to interview and be considered for this position. As you may know, I've appeared in front of this subcommittee before, and I hope after today you have a better idea of who I am as a person and who I will be as a judge. The bottom line is I want to be a City of Phoenix Municipal Court judge. I have spent years preparing for this position. This has always been my goal, and I truly believe this is where I can make a difference in people's lives as well as the community. I've been an assistant city prosecutor for over 19 years. I currently hold a leadership role where I supervise and mentor over 20 attorneys. What's significant about that, the 19 years is in this very courthouse. So on a daily basis, I am aware of the statutes that we deal with, the cases that we handle, and the people that come through this courthouse every single day. And oftentimes it's their very first interaction with the judicial system. Over half my career has been devoted to domestic violence, prosecuting DV cases, building relationships with the police department, organizing fundraisers, and just increasing general awareness. More recently, I've been involved in specialty courts, the Regional Homeless Court, which I've presented to the committee on that and its accomplishments. I'm very proud, though, to tell you I've been part of the creation of Suspended License Court. And this is truly an example of innovative accountability. And we've seen tremendous progress in this court. We started it almost a year ago, and I'm tremendously proud of what we've accomplished in that court. On a more personal level, I am a City of Phoenix resident. I have been married to a very supportive husband for almost 15 years. We have a daughter who is currently in 4th grade, and that's me in a nutshell. So thank you.
No, thank you. Mayor?
Tell us about what you do for fun, what's your hobbies?
Well, I will tell you that honestly, sometimes my work-life balance isn't always the best. And sometimes I'll work more than I should, but I try to spend time with my family. My daughter has activities that my husband and I enjoy going and attending and just kind of being out in the community. She enjoys tennis and volleyball, so we're very big fans of her in those endeavors. But what I want to say is I often see that the lack of that balance in court. When I'm talking to people in court, whether it's victims or defendants, it's that lack of the work and home balance that people often have trouble with. They're juggling jobs, they're juggling kids, they're juggling marriage and different obligations. So I'm keenly aware of that, and I try to be more responsible in making sure I have that balance and I'm enjoying time at home, whether it's gardening or yard work or just spending time again with my husband and my daughter.
Thank you. Councilmember Mendoza?
Tell me about an innovative idea you've had that you've been able to implement in your career.
Again, I will tell you, I truly think suspended license court that we started over there in October of 2017 is a tremendous example of innovative accountability. And let me tell you how it goes. So I've been part of the creation of that, and we have people come in every Tuesday afternoon and every Friday afternoon, and these are people who've been charged with driving on a suspended license. And this isn't a free pass. This isn't, okay, you've come here so many times, so we're going to give you a dismissal. This is, here is a roadmap to how you can get your driver's license reinstated. This is what you can do. These are the steps. And they show so much accountability and desire to work on that. And I truly think that the City of Phoenix is on the right track, for lack of a better phrase, because this is where we want to go. This is the forward movement. This is having accountability of people, but yet making sure we're looking at it a different way, in an innovative way. And it's not a free pass. I mean, these people go out into the community. They pay thousands of dollars of fines to MVD, other cities, other jurisdictions. They go to the traffic survival school. They go to counseling. And then they come in. And they are so proud when I walk up to them and say, have you reinstated your driver's license? And they're so happy to like flip that driver's license in my face. We've seen people with tears in their eyes because it's been over 20 years since they've actually had a driver's license. And this is such a new endeavor for us, because in the past, you come in, you get a conviction for driving on a suspended license, nothing's taken care of. No fines are paid. They continue to drive in the community. And so it doesn't help the community at all. So I'm truly, truly excited, if you can't tell, about this project that the City of Phoenix Court is working on and has been working on. And like I said, we are seeing tremendous progress.
Jim, any questions?
You've only been a prosecutor.
Correct.
You don't happen to know Pam Gates, do you?
I am familiar with her. I don't know her personally.
I think she went to Drake, but that's the law school too.
I'm aware of that.
Thank you.
Alrighty. And my question is, what work or training have you participated in to allow you to develop the understanding of how diverse our Phoenix community is?
Thank you, Chairman. I think diversity is very important, and I think I have a diverse background, but I think in not only talking about the differences that I've experienced, it's how we see and how we treat and how we relate to people. For me, the socioeconomic background that I have, my daughter will often ask me, Mom, were you poor when you were young? And I don't know quite how to answer that question, but I can tell you that my personal experiences make me keenly aware of the people that we deal with on a daily basis. When people come into suspended license court, I mean, they look at me straight in the eye and they say, you know, I had to put food on the table. I couldn't make that payment this time, but that's okay. That's, if you're making progress, if you know what you need to do, we're going to come back in 30, 60 days and see where you can go. And it's amazing what they're willing to do. And so I think, Chairman, my diversity is based on my experiences. Also, I think it's important to be out in the community, and I've been very adamant about getting my daughter, and my husband, of course, going out into the community. For example, we serve with Kitchen on the Street, and that's a good experience for my daughter to see people who are fighting hunger locally. We also do community service with a community garden, and then the food goes to DV shelters, which I think is important. So it's important as a person, as a judicial officer, to be out in the community so that you can see the perspective. Judicial officers are making decisions all of the time that affect people, individually and in the community. And unless you are in the community and seeing the diversity of the people that you deal with, I don't think you really have a good sense of the decisions that you're making on a daily basis.
So thank you so much. Any other questions? So any closing remarks?
I would like to address the lack of being a defense attorney, because I think that's important, and I know that's a perceived weakness of mine. However, I would disagree. And I will tell you, I spend much of my day talking to more defense attorneys and sometimes my own colleagues. And that's because of my reputation. And I've spent years building that reputation. And the reputation is a person of being fair and reasonable. And oftentimes when it's easier to say no, I'll say yes, I'll look at it. And that does not mean that I will give a free pass, or I will say, oh, I agree, or I'll dismiss it. I may not agree, but I can assure you that every defense attorney who calls me, texts me, emails me every week knows I'm going to look at it. I say what I mean and I do what I say. And so I think even though I haven't been a defense attorney, I don't think it's about being a defense attorney or a prosecutor. I think it's about being a good attorney and a good person. And I've established the reputation of being fair and reasonable, and I have no doubt, 100% confident that I will transfer that to the bench.
Thank you so much. Any? Thank you. Thank you. I think we have James, right? We're still morning. That's good.
Still morning.
Good morning, James.
Good
How you
morning,
doing?
thank you.
So if you take a couple minutes just to tell us about yourself and why would you want to be a judge?
Yes, sir. Do I need to press a button or are we okay? Very good. Good morning again. I'm James Tinker, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, and I was born the third son of a career military officer. My dad was a combat fighter pilot and lots of combat missions under his belt, medals on his chest, shot down in combat, prisoner of war, and we were a family of 6 children. So you can imagine the disciplined environment in which I grew up, not to mention he was devout Catholic. So Jesuit education when those schools were available. We moved a lot when I was a child, all the way through high school. I went to 3 different high schools. And we had to move because of the military. That taught me so much, though, because I learned adaptability. I learned acceptance. I learned how to read people more closely. If America is a melting pot, then America's military is a melting pot on steroids, because we dealt with people of all ethnicities, races, genders, and that's just how life was. It wasn't anything different than a diverse environment. I can never recall my father saying anything. He never spoke an unkind word about anyone, but never a racial slur or any reference to any differences among people. We were all in the same boat. We all played together at the base school. We all shopped in the same area. There were people of different ethnicities who outranked my father, and that's just how life was. So I really appreciate the adaptability that came from that upbringing. I went to college at the University of New Mexico. I have an undergraduate in accounting and a master's degree in information systems. I worked my way through college driving a taxi on the graveyard shift. And so I would work from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. and I would go to school from about 9 to 3, and then I would go home and sleep. And that was my life for about 4 years until I was able to take a break. But my family didn't have the means to send me to school, so I was forced to do it myself. And I think I gained something from that experience as well. It taught me something about persistence and work ethic. I worked in the corporate world, as you know from my resume, primarily in systems analysis because of my information systems master's degree, and also in strategic planning. And that taught me a lot about organizational skills, about getting buy-in to achieve goals, and working with other people. I went to law school at the Arizona State University. I went on a full ride scholarship. I was so appreciative of that education, and I remain tied to that university still. I do volunteer work over there. I stay in touch with my professors, and I'm trying to remain close to that community. I'm a family man. I have a daughter. I have a son-in-law and 2 granddaughters as well. I'm very proud of and close to. And they live in Michigan now. My son-in-law was a Phoenix police officer for 11 years, When they started having children, they decided to move to Michigan to be in a rural environment, and that's where they wanted to raise their kids near some of their cousins. So I go see them 4 or 5 times a year, but they are near and dear to my heart. That's me.
Mayor, any questions?
I'm gonna know what you do for fun, what your hobbies are, any other community service that you do.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning. Music has been a great joy in my life, and I've played the guitar, the bass guitar, since I was 15. If I can say it with some humility, I'm pretty darn good at it. And I play in a rhythm and blues band with a bunch of other lawyers and some other hangers-on. Charles Calleros is a professor at the law school. He's in the group. He started the group. So it's a very fun collegial way to keep up my avocation of music, and I get to play with some stellar musicians in doing that. I'm also, I'm not going to say I'm an avid bicyclist, but I'm an aspiring avid bicyclist. So I was on my bicycle this morning, and I was yesterday morning as well. And last year, I rode in a 50-mile bike ride raising money for the Make-A-Wish Foundation in Michigan. And I don't mind saying that by the time the 50 miles was done, I needed some medical help getting the seat removed. But the experience was invaluable, and I raised, of all the 50-mile riders, there was a 300-mile ride as well my son-in-law went on. Of all the 50-mile riders, I raised the most money, and it was hundreds of riders. And I have to thank the legal community here for doing that. I put out the word, and friends and colleagues chipped in big time. I like to cook. I'm a real fan of that. I'm not going to say I can cook everything, but I really enjoy the grilling aspect or cooking a meal for other people. On volunteer work side, I stay involved, as I said, with the university. I have spoken at several of the criminal justice classes to the students over there about what it's like to be a criminal defense lawyer. I participated in the events on, I think, 4 or 5 times. They have a conference every year for aspiring law students, or current high school students or college students who are members of the, it may be a variety of Latino organizations, but the Hispanic National Bar Association puts on the conference at Arizona State, and Charles Calleros is a big part of that. He generally runs the thing. So he's brought me in to mentor the students over there. He's also had me run some of the day-long sessions that they've had. I love that part, and selfishly, I'm going to tell you I love it because I get so much satisfaction from it. I get more out of it than I think the participants do. And I did the same thing for the Trial Skills College for the Native American Bar. They had people from Indian tribes all over the state, and the Indian Legal Program at Arizona State University, which I was a member of when I was there, brought me in to give a talk on how to do a closing argument and to be a moot court judge and mentor some of the younger folks. Out of that HNBA session, a couple of times I've brought groups of students down to our court right here to observe courtrooms operating. So my focus in terms of community service, I think, has been, now that I look back in retrospect, that it's more about education and leadership and development and mentoring. And it's unfolded that way because, again, selfishly, I get the most satisfaction from that piece.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember
Mendoza?
Mendoza. I was going to say Gallegos. You got me stuck.
Tell me about an innovative idea you've had that you've been able to implement in your career.
That's a good question. Much of what we do in the law, I think, is based on precedent and history. And so I have a difficult time taking credit for an original idea when really I'm poaching ideas from lawyers who have come before me. I think that where I get creative is perhaps in the use of settlement conferences. Those are a tool that I think we could really use more of in the city court. They're not used in city courts much at all, so I'm not pinpointing the City of Phoenix Court. It's a tool at Superior Court, but I think the rules allow us to do that kind of a thing at the city court level as well. It may be something that we could use to resolve more cases more reasonably, more quickly, and with less cost involved in terms of the resources applied to any particular case. Again, I can't take a lot of credit for a ton of original ideas, but I think tying together ideas that I've gleaned from other lawyers has helped me in an example of settlement conferences.
Councilmember Waring, any questions?
I don't think I do.
Alrighty. I have a question. So what work or training has prepared you in allowing you to develop an understanding of the diverse community that we live in?
Well, we certainly do live in a diverse community. Phoenix has been diverse for years. It's getting more diverse as time goes by. And I mentioned my upbringing in a military family. That taught me a lot about diversity. My father was born and raised on an Indian reservation in Oklahoma, and he, even though we'd never got to live there, he, because we were around the world, I lived in 2 foreign countries, but he would often weave in stories of his childhood in the talks he would have with all of us kids about life growing up on and around the reservation, the values that he learned in that process. And I didn't touch very much on the fact that we did live in 2 foreign countries, and we lived in Japan when I was in elementary school, and in North Africa when I was in junior high and high school. And in North Africa, we weren't really a very welcome part of the population there. The local population did not appreciate Americans. My father was assigned to a U.S. embassy there, so we lived right in a North African city on the Mediterranean coast, and we lived there 3 years. And so that part of living among other people in other parts of the world and around the country as well also was a big part of teaching me about diverse populations and dealing with people from different backgrounds, accepting, reading the nuances of communication, being able to reach out to them as well. In addition, I have dealt with hundreds of cases with people of different backgrounds as a prosecutor and defense attorney, and also my last 14 years as a pro tem judge. Those experiences have exposed me to people of all walks of life, economic and ethnic and otherwise, social skills, all of it. And all of those things sort of blend together in what I consider a very, to me anyway, a valuable stew or a gift of qualities that allows me to be more open and accepting and communicative.
Any closing remarks?
Well, first of all, thank you. I'm honored and grateful to be present here today. I know you all have to do a lot of work to make your choices, and there are hard choices to make. I think I'm a honest-to-God, legitimate choice here for you. I think I'm one of the few candidates who brings defense work, prosecutorial work, 14 years as a pro tem judge, in addition to a very diverse background that allows you to see me in a light that's different than others. I know there were other openings in other courts this year. I didn't apply to those. I'm a resident of Phoenix. I shop in Phoenix. I go to movies in Phoenix. I go to dinner in Phoenix. I enjoy living here, and I think I can contribute to the quality of life here in Phoenix.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Can I make one point?
Absolutely.
Greg Stanton isn't the mayor anymore, so you don't have to tell us you shop all the time in Phoenix. That's overstated. That was like his thing. I think we all understand if there's a better deal. I'm teasing, of course. Thank you for that, but it would have been music to his ears. Unfortunately, it doesn't do you any good today, so.
Well, let's hope some of the others did.
Thank you, James. We'd like to take a recess until tomorrow at 8:45, 9 o'clock.
8:45.
Okay,
8:45 was gonna be a little, probably make that work, but it's gonna be a little tight.
can you make that work?
What? I'm sorry.
All right.
Closer to 9 here.
All right, so at 9 o'clock, thank you.